All right. Welcome to ACAB Radio. This is episode 28. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm your host, Jay Leifer, King Ron, and Special K Patterson over here.
Somebody hit a jackpot.
Yep, that's me.
We're brought to you by Nevada Cop Block. That's nvcopblock.org, and Food Not Bombs Las Vegas. That's foodnotbombslasvegas.org. We got a great show for you guys today. Some body cam footage, some other viral video, and just national news stories regarding the police. Usually we just dive right into some pretty heavy shit, so we got something a little lighter for you guys today. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but cops were invited to a school by the principals or whatever to do like a drug sweep, and one of the classes, I don't know if it's a history class or social science class or something, did a project on the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, and a lot of kids chose to talk about police brutality, and
Quite a few of them by the looks of the posters.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the story is that their assignment wasn't police brutality or to do stuff about police brutality. Their assignment was, the Fourth and Fifth Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And, police brutality is so prevalent these days and so, unmasked at this point because of the ability to videotape them, that those kids on their own decided to discuss and make fucking posters about police brutality. And so while the cops came down to harass them and do a drug sweep and try to condition them to accept being searched by the police, with little actual reasoning, they had their big macho feelings hurt by seeing all these fucking posters in the hallway that they were getting ready to search.
I'm really proud of those kids. I mean,
Good stuff, for sure.
What we're doing is
Look at
making a
this.
difference. People are aware, at least the younger generation.
That's some
And
good
that's the
artwork,
most
too.
important generation. They're the ones coming up. They're the ones that will be in the workforce soon. And hopefully they'll make the right choice and not join the police.
All right. Well, here's a news clip for people that might not be familiar with this
These
story.
posters right here, the pictures of them were posted on Facebook last night. Since then, that Facebook post has garnered dozens of comments and more than 100 shares.
Not impressive.
Police brutality, written in bold across several posters at Mount Morris's Elisabeth Ann Johnson High School. A man posted these photos to Facebook last night, saying he's upset with the anti-police message he thinks this assignment was sending to students. Quote, Mount Morris schools are perpetuating the narrative, lies, and victimhood. His post, shared more than 140 times, has raised questions about what prompted these posters. We
Things
reached out to the
bootlickers
school
say.
to get some answers. Mount Morris Superintendent Renee Gouster couldn't meet with us on camera, but sent us a response. She says this was for a social studies class in which students were learning about the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, search and seizure, as well as the prohibition of self-incrimination and double jeopardy, and the mandate of due process. This led some students to choose to do their final project on topics like Terry frisk, Miranda rights, and what's seen in the photos, police brutality. Gouster
And
went on to apologize and says they never wanted to upset or offend police officers.
Were they
Quote,
afraid to
that was
offend and
never the
upset them?
intent, and the posters have been removed so that we can study them
Yeah,
and create
so
adjustments in future
meanwhile,
work.
There we go. That
part of the Fourth and Fifth Amendment is those illegal searches that they're doing. Where they,
Right? Kind of ironic.
And while they're discussing those,
I shouldn't
amendments,
say
the
illegal, I
right
should
of free
just-
speech.
yeah, I shouldn't say illegal because when the government's in control of the courts, they decide what is legal and what is not illegal, and they decide. I mean, we can argue about what is actually constitutional, but the reality is they control the courts and they decide what is constitutional or not. If the Supreme Court says something's constitutional, regardless of what it actually is, it's constitutional.
Right.
For all
well,
intents
and also at the
purposes.
school, it tells you if this is a concern of the students, why aren't they addressing that issue? Why are the students feel the need and to create these posters? They remove them, hoping that it will go away. But this is in the students' consciousness.
And the other thing
They're
is,
thinking about because they know they're at
they,
risk.
Yep.
like typical bullies, they use their authority to not only force these to be taken down, but to force the superintendent of the schools to apologize to them
Yep.
for something that was an assignment given to students, and students used their own mind to think how they were going to complete that assignment. And we're not told to do anything about police brutality. It was an assignment that they went out and used their independent thought to interpret that way.
It's
Absolutely.
unbelievable. It's like
And
complete.
then they complained that the apology wasn't good enough. And meanwhile,
No,
everybody
fuck them.
should that man.
If they know the laws,
Well, because society and
ridiculous.
the job structure right now is set up so that independent thought is frowned upon. So, in a way, they are by actually teaching them and having them use their own mind. They are limiting the job sources that they or the job options that they have in the future.
sure.
I can't think of anything more defining. I mean, this embodies a police state where the police come in and say, look, teacher, you can't do this kind of assignment. You need to have these kids take these posters down. I mean, what the fuck? The fact that the police are even in schools in the first place, and now they're trying to control the curriculum. Like, no, you can't teach that. No, they're trying to
there we
control
go. That's a police state.
the conversation in a classroom. Is just crazy to me.
And so the only way to not have that result is either not to teach about the Fourth and Fifth Amendment or to tell them, don't say anything about police brutality. You're not allowed to. So,
Well, now they need to have another assignment on the First Amendment.
That's right.
right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So the next story here, this was just crazy. We've got the body cam of this too, but this was another unarmed teen. He was black, of course, white officer, had a cell phone, and they didn't kill him. He was shot, I believe, twice, but he is
They tried
confined
to kill him.
a
Well, they
wheelchair
also-
now.
When they released that video, it shows pretty clearly that his hands are up in the air. He's not.
Yeah.
They tried to claim that he was armed and that he was refusing to drop the weapon that he had.
Yeah.
That wasn't actually a weapon.
See,
Right.
and when they say that they perceive it as a weapon, that's very important because when the statistics come out at the end of the year of how many unarmed people police have killed, this won't be included in it because the numbers don't include those that police thought were armed. So everybody with the cell phone, or like the guy out here, Lloyd Napook, and the last officer involved shooting who had a plastic stick,
Or,
They
or
won't
the
be
woman with
included.
a broken
And
hand.
meanwhile,
mm-hmm.
on that little screen, that tiny image there, that little screenshot, I could make out that that's not a gun.
Yeah.
So that guy's there, maybe 10 feet away from him, I'd judge by, looking at that. He could tell he
This,
didn't have a
this
gun in
was
his
another
hand.
attempt at a police assassination of the people.
Yeah.
It's cut and dry. It's you can see it.
And it's another
Here.
one of those things where they refused to release the video because they knew it was going to make them look bad.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, this is somebody who committed no crime. He didn't even have a criminal record. Not that any of that matters, but even after the fact, they couldn't slander him for what a terrible criminal he was because he had no record. He was just trying to call his mom when the cops showed up and shoot him. It's just unbelievable. Here's the footage. It's real short, about a minute long.
You want us to go up? He's up on the roof. You got the gun in there? He doesn't have a gun in his hand, but he was hiding behind an AC unit. I got him covered right here if you're going to jump up.
So he even says he doesn't have a gun in his hand.
Yeah. So they know he doesn't have a gun in his
Get your
hand.
hands in the air! Do it now! Turn around! Turn around! Get down! You didn't fucking move!
You just watched the attempted execution by
Move!
the police.
Fucking move! Stay down! I got him! You're good!
And if there was a gun, they would have went for the gun to remove the gun from so it would be not within reach. So even by their actions of not removing that item, you know that they knew that it wasn't a gun.
Yeah.
There's multiple ways to see that.
I just can't believe how they go over there, they put the handcuffs on him. Dude just got shot. Like, he's now in a wheelchair. Like, I can't imagine how
Yeah, he puts his
painful that
knee in his
must be.
back.
Oh, it's
And this
just so
happens
fucked up.
time and time and time again across the United States.
So this is an article from the Free Thought Project. A lot of our articles come from them. Definitely check it out. It says here in the article that when they first talked about it, police said that they pulled up, and this dude tried to run, and they shot him. Did you see him try to run? Anybody? No, right? So now you've got them lying, which is...
When they also say, that he refused to drop the weapon that they already acknowledged in the video he didn't have, and that he wouldn't put his hands up, and his hands were pretty clearly in the air at the time, So that's the thing is, anytime they refuse to release body cam, there's something wrong.
And of
Something
course,
that's not
I
supporting
don't
their
know
story.
if they'll be held accountable. If things go as they always do,
They won't.
they won't.
So here's the victim, Smith Jr. He said, I really don't know why they shot me. The officer scared the hell out of me, man. He got off the bike grabbing his gun, saying I matched the description of someone having a gun. They said, have your hands up, put your hands up. I had my hands up. My phone was in my right hand. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. The police used to be, I feared for my life, and I gave him justification. Their second go-to is I thought he had a weapon. And, clearly when there is no weapon, or, it's just their go-to story so that they won't be held accountable.
Yeah. And on top of
But
it,
we know it's bullshit.
he's on the roof where he's going to run to.
We know it's bullshit.
I mean, is he Superman? He's going to fly away?
And now he said, I never thought this was going to happen to me. I didn't think I'd be in a wheelchair. His right leg, he has partial use of it. We can only hope that the U.S. attorney would get involved because we may have a violation of civil rights. You may have.
Which won't happen.
This
But
is a police
the
war
only
against the
the only
people.
recourse anybody has at this point is a lawsuit, and trying to make it so that the public gets mad enough about the cops spending their money to bail them out of their I will say mistakes, but they're usually not mistakes.
Yeah.
But to bail them out when they do something egregious like this, that's the only way is to hit them in the pocketbook. And people, the problem is people don't get mad enough about it.
Yeah.
They don't really care, except that at some point these are going to get bad enough that cities are going to be going bankrupt just based on police.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
saw
the
some
thing
of
is
the
it's
numbers, man.
taxpayers.
Some of the numbers are astronomical. New York, for one, holy cow.
Yeah.
They pay out so much.
And it's taxpayer dollars. You know what I mean? It might be money that the police department has, but
No, but it
how
comes
did
out of
they
the,
get
it comes out of the
Yeah.
public pocket. It comes out of my
Exactly.
pocket. It comes out of your pocket.
Yeah. So the next story here, this was exclusively from the Free Thought Project. Somebody must have contacted them, which I know Nevada Cop Block, it's people coming to them with stories. So definitely if you have a story that you think needs to be told about how the police did you dirty or when you were locked up, some story of what happened, contact us through the NV Cop Block Facebook page. Send Kelly a message.
There's a submission page on the website.
Yeah.
On the front page, there's a link to it.
So yeah, help us tell your story, like this guy here. Police shoot unarmed boy who was a passenger during a traffic stop and confiscate everyone's cell phones. This was a routine traffic stop. Again, there's no crime too small that police will not kill you over. It was an 18-year-old driving the car, 16-year-old passenger, who, for whatever reason, took off and ran.
Well, he was afraid of being
Yeah.
shot. I mean, we just saw the innocent person just
There was
being
a
gunned
gang
down.
member with from a gang that has a history of violence pointing a gun at him.
Right.
There
You
you
run.
go, yeah.
Of course you run.
So they tased him, and when he was on the ground, like not moving or fighting at this point, he's just on the ground, like writhing in pain from the taser, shot him in the stomach. And the eyewitness stories, of course, don't match up with the police story because the guy, the officer who shot him, doesn't want the truth to get out, so he lies. And yeah, we don't have a video for this one, but these are according to eyewitnesses and from the boy's father, who was the victim in this incident. So definitely check out that story.
And the reason we don't have a video is because they confiscated everybody's cell phones.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. The
Oh.
cell phones are gone. Who knows if we'll see
With-
any body cam footage in the near future.
Which another thing is if they take your phone and they delete it, or if you have a camera and they delete it, there is ways to get that back. And it's sometimes it's easy enough at just downloading software, but there are professionals you can go to that can retrieve video if it's been really messed up, as long as you don't record over it. So if you ever get arrested by the police and they
Confiscate your
confiscate
phone
your phone and
or camera.
delete it, don't record anything else until you've tried to recover that video.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom.
This is a huge story. This is a national story now. Mall shooter gets away after police show up and kill different man who reportedly stopped him. So last week we talked about, here I'll show you guys this story here, about a security guard in Chicago who there was an active shooter, and the cops, he actually killed the active shooter, saving people's lives. Cops showed up on the scene and killed him. So they killed a hero, a good guy with a gun.
Hey,
So this ties
do you
into
see a
that.
common thread that's running through all these photos?
Yeah, I mean, to me,
Yeah.
it's like it's
Well-
becoming a crime to be black and
It's
armed,
it's
which is your right.
To be black and gen. But
it's not a crime. It's becoming an
The-
executionable.
the thing about that
offense.
is
Yeah.
they'll show up with mass shooters that are white. So if
And
they're
they take 'em-
not black, and they take them in unharmed.
Yeah.
Right. Even if it takes hours and hours of negotiation and standing
And the other
back.
thing, a lot of people they're using this excuse. Well, he had his gun out. Well, first of all, they showed up and just shot him in the face. On top of that, which is an old mob tactic, so that your mother can't bury you in an open casket.
Yeah,
But,
we actually have a video of the mom saying that same exact thing.
Yeah, so they shot him without. The witnesses say that they never ordered him to stop or to drop his gun or any of that. And I also heard a report that he didn't even have the gun out. I haven't seen an actual print report of that to confirm it. That's why I haven't, because I was going to do a post on it, but I've been looking for an actual confirmation on that. So if that's the case, then there's no excuse whatsoever.
Listen,
Yeah.
there's no excuses for all these stories. That there's an active assassination program going on in the black community by the police. So whether he had his gun out or didn't, the police went in, saw a black guy, and executed him on sight.
And the other thing is, they knew pretty quickly that he wasn't the guy that they were looking for.
That's why.
Who's still out there running around, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they execute on sight. If it's a
And instead of acknowledging that,
Family's Thanksgiving will never be the same. This was an Army vet who, I mean, people are now assassinating his character, saying he didn't complete the Army training or whatnot. Like, none of that is important. This picture alone got a lot of flack because his hat's on backwards. You know what I mean? It's just unbelievable the things
'Cause
that
that's the
people will
important
do.
thing.
well,
Yeah.
that's what bootlickers will do.
Yeah, let's
is
focus
they'll-
on that instead of the fact that the police showed up and killed the wrong fucking dude, and now the shooter is out at large, and this family's life will never be the same. So
Well,
here's
I
the-
also have an issue with it being, some sort of mass shooter or. From the story that I read, it looked like it was a targeted shooting, that there must have been.
there was an argument between two people,
Right.
and one of them pulled out a gun and shot the other, which means they probably know who the guy is who did it.
Right.
Unless it was just two people that randomly met and somehow had some kind of altercation,
Well,
because they never explained the details.
But it wasn't some sort of mass shooting at the mall. It was a targeted shooting of one
Right.
individual, though that doesn't make as good news as saying there was a mass shooting at the mall over the holiday season.
No,
So-
the real story here is this guy who witnesses have saved their life by getting them out of there. People that were there felt like this guy saved their life, right? And he didn't make it home, and it's because the police showed up and killed him. So here's a clip of the family.
Joining us now are EJ's parents. We have April Pipkins and Emantic Bradford Sr. We also have civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, who is representing
And his father's a cop,
the
by the way,
family
also.
now. Ms.
Yeah.
Pipkins, Mr. Bradford, we're so sorry for your loss and how it had to happen this way and how
It had
you
to happen
find
this
out
way.
about this.
What the
Mr.
fuck does that
Bradford,
mean?
We here on New Day on
I'm-
Friday.
yeah, are
reported
you sorry
on
that he
this,
wasn't white?
as
Is that what
though
that means?
The gunman had been shot and killed by police. That's what the police statement said. That's what our police sources said. And then the story changed. And it turned
Remarkable.
out that your son, your 21-year-old son, who has no criminal record, was the person who was shot and killed, and the gunman is still on the loose. What have police told you about this horrible mistake?
They haven't told me anything yet. Nobody has responded. You know, we hadn't got no calls and no apology. Nothing has been told to us what happened, what transpired, and led up to this point.
Mr. Bradford, the police, in this horrible, tragic case of mistaken identity, have not reached out to you, his family.
No, not at all.
Ms. Pipkins, how do you feel? You're holding a picture there of your son. We've seen him. We've seen how handsome he was. Obviously, he went into the Army. He was described by everybody as just being a helpful person, wanting to help others. How do you explain what happened in that mall?
I know that was the day that they took my son from me, and my Thanksgiving will never be the same. I'll never be able to see my son's face again, or to look into his eyes, or to hear him say, "Mom, I love you, Mom, love you," and hug on me and kiss on me, you know. And like his father has said, no one has even reached out to us in any type of way. So my Thanksgiving will never be the same, because that's just the you know, when I lost my son, and
Yeah.
you know, not knowing, not even knowing if I'll be able to have an open casket, you know, to see him again. I'm just at a loss of words right now.
Understood. Mr. Crump, this is horrible. I mean, this is just a horrible tragedy, and the idea that the police wouldn't reach out to the family to try to explain themselves, but maybe it's that in the chaotic seconds after a gunman opened fire on shoppers in a crowded mall, they showed up, and I think that what their story is now was that EJ had a gun himself, and they thought that he was brandishing a gun and that he was the gunman.
So
Can
she's
it
a
be
mouthpiece
an
for the
innocent
police. She's
Yeah.
making a
of
case for
mistaken
them.
identity?
Yeah, she's trying to
Well,
justify
Well,
it.
it's
Yeah.
awfully ironic that they're asking for this family to give them the benefit of the doubt, the benefit of consideration, Allison, even though they didn't give E.J. Bradford the benefit of the doubt and
Exactly.
consideration when this off-duty police officer who was doing private security for the Galleria Mall pulled the trigger, we believe, unjustifiably. Several witnesses have reached out to us and said it was in milliseconds. He offered no verbal commands. He didn't say freeze, police, anything. He just saw a young black man with a gun and he shot. Witnesses say EJ was helping them. A young lady said EJ saved her life and helped several others, reached out to the family. So he was a good guy with a gun. But this notion of good guy with a gun trying to stop the bad guys with guns doing these mass shootings, where if you happen to be black, the police see you as a criminal, and they shoot and kill you. That has been shown in Jamel Robinson in Chicago, now here in Birmingham, Alabama, which is the epicenter of the civil rights movement, that it doesn't matter if you're a good guy with a gun. If you're black, the police shoot and kill you and ask questions later.
Mr. Crump,
There we go.
Yeah.
So as I say,
And,
man,
and they
there's a
try to
police
avoid
work
asking
to people.
questions is the reality.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
But a terrible way to have to wake up and realize that's what is going on. My heart goes out to this family. To lose a child
Yeah, for
is
sure.
one of the most horrible things I could ever imagine.
And then imagine both this case and the one in Chicago. If the people who had, say they had been white, I bet you the NRA would come out and defend them. And
Yeah, fuck the NRA.
but now, you know,
they're
since they're black, they
irrelevant.
don't say shit. Just like with Philando Castile. I mean, it's just, I just wanted to point that out. Don't expect the NRA to
No,
say
they were
shit.
they were relevant, and they actually hurt. You know, that type of movement. You know, they're phony, and they have been phony for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, they don't stand up for gun rights like people think they do. This was a follow-up to the Parkland shooting. The police captain there has just resigned. We have a animation of how this happened. Like they did a really in-depth reporting on it, and if we have time at the end of the show, we'll show you. But
Which meanwhile, it's another case of resigning and not being fired.
Right.
yeah, so she still
And
gets all her
one of the
paid time
things
off
is,
and-
you know, this cop who was on video outside, you know, hiding during the shooting. That's the one that's gotten all the attention, and that one that they've basically thrown, you know,
Under
to the
the bus.
wolves, and you know, gave him this fancy six-figure retirement fund to, you know, basically make him feel better.
Yeah.
Even though he was still trying to collect money on GoFundMe. But every officer from the BSO out there did not go inside. It was the Parkland Police Department that finally went inside after he was already gone, and you know, they caught him off site somewhere else. So the reality is they were ordered not to go into the school during the shooting, and there were people in the school had already been shot that were like bleeding out that could have been saved if they'd gotten immediate medical attention.
Yeah, once they finally went in, there was one of them was, I think it was a PE teacher or one of the people that work at this school was shot, and he died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Had they gone in right when they got there, instead of following her orders, which were to set up a perimeter and not engage, it could have saved lives. Definitely could have saved his life.
What do you,
Probably could have saved others.
what do you mean? You know, a police officer's job is to make sure that they go home safe and sound at the end of every shift. And if that means that your child has to be murdered and shot, so be it, as long as they get to go home without a scratch and don't put themselves in danger.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court's even ruled that the police have no legal obligation to protect and serve you. Like, they can put it on their cars or whatever they want to say.
No,
They
that
actually-
hasn't been there for a long time.
Yeah, they started taking it off because they didn't want that you know, people expecting that that expectation.
False
Now it's all
advertising.
partners with the community and all that nonsense, which is just as not true, but you know, partners with certain communities. They're pretty good partners with Summerlin and all the rich people out here in Vegas, but go downtown and see how much of a partner they are.
Yeah.
This is a huge story that is relevant with other stories going on right now, but this was a Border Patrol agent that was on trial for killing a 16-year-old Mexican kid who was in Mexico across on the other side of the border. Border Patrol agent shot across the border and killed him. Shot him numerous times, too. And he was charged with involuntary manslaughter. This was back in 2012. And I really don't think it's a coincidence that the verdict came out when it did. Like, the timing, they let him go right as the caravan gets here, and we see them, you know, Border Patrol at the border shooting tear gas. And it's like saying, look, if you have to use live ammunition,
if you want to.
you won't be held. You won't be held responsible. Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, if you want to, we won't charge you. Well, we'll charge you.
Because
but
there's
you
no
won't
way
get
he could have
convicted.
just went farther than he could throw a rock.
Right.
You know.
And Trump even said, you know, treat rock throwing as rifles, and this guy did.
Well,
And they let him off the hook for it. So it's the timing to me it's not a coincidence. It's giving them the green light, saying, "Look, we got your back if you kill somebody."
You know, there's a certain racist element that runs all through this, and not only in the military, which there's been reports that, you know, racist white supremacist groups have infiltrated both the police force and the military,
Which is
in order to get training. But you also have the
which
crazy
is inaccurate, actually.
Huh?
Because they don't have to infiltrate something they already are a big part of.
part of.
I mean,
But there's also the white supremacist militias who can't wait to shoot a person of color. You know, that's they wait their whole lives for an opportunity, and you know, now they know that they'll be able to get off by using the same excuse. It gives racists an opportunity now to slaughter innocent children, and trust me, they'll be taking advantage of that. As the weeks and months go by, we'll see more and more of these incidents, unless the people actually speak up and demand an end to this atrocity that's going on right now.
I hope it doesn't escalate to that, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised. So this particular incident, he shot him 13 times, all but 3 in the back.
Yeah.
That's just crazy to me. There's another thing in this.
And so that's the thing. I mean, like I said, if he's throwing rocks, unless you're stuck somewhere where you can't move, you simply go farther away than he can throw a rock. And I'm sure he was in his vehicle while he was there. It wasn't like he was walking. So it's just, he was mad because he threw a rock at him, so he murdered him.
He's a
That's
child
what it amounts to.
murderer.
Yeah, he had a 37-foot barrier in between him. The kid was 100 feet away, but he was afraid for his life.
Yeah.
There we go. This is what I said.
So-
There's a a concerted effort to
There was
execute.
probably pretty much no chance the kid could have hit him with a rock in the first place.
Right.
From that distance, you know. And even if he would have, it wouldn't have hurt him from 100 feet away.
Well, like I said, there's a concerted effort
And he's probably wearing
to
all these,
murder people of color
He's probably wearing
on
all
this
his
side of the border
fancy-
and now the other
But
side.
he's also probably wearing all his fancy police uniforms with a helmet and body armor and all that shit.
Yep.
So yeah, I wanted to make the point to bring this up just because of what's going on at our southern border. And I've gotten into it with a lot of people online about this and in person over the last couple days. And one thing I want to say is that if you are willing to support what's going on down at the southern border right now, then that means you are willing to support what's going on in Palestine, in Gaza, every time Israel kills people.
Well,
in
yeah,
the
these are
press,
the same
children,
people that
yeah, and
that justify and agree
furthermore-
with that.
Yep. Furthermore, you would be willing to, had you grown up in Nazi Germany during the rise of Hitler,
Or in East
you would have
Berlin.
been a good little German and supported the rise of fascism as well, and you would have.
You would have turned in your neighbors.
It's the same scapegoating that they did with the Jews that is being done to immigrants today in America.
And it's the whole argument about them coming to the border is a false argument, because what's happening is people who've been displaced by a large part by U.S. foreign policy
Hell
are
yeah.
coming to ask for asylum. They're not crashing the gates and running off into New Mexico. They're trying to come to the border so that they can ask for asylum, and
but
they're
then
being attacked.
they close down the port of
Right.
entry where you're supposed to legally
and the people
ask
that
for
were tear gassed were not across the border; they were
Mhm.
at the border.
Yeah.
This will be considered war crimes at some point in our history.
In which it is against Geneva Convention to use tear gas.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So when they do that in the streets against protesters, that's actual war crime. When they do it at the border against people that are fleeing from life-threatening situations, or even if they're just coming here because they think that they can better themselves financially, regardless of the reason they're doing it, it's a war crime. It's reality. It's in the Geneva Convention that you're not supposed to use chemical weapons, and the tear gas is listed as a chemical weapon.
Yeah, and I brought that up to somebody, and their response was, "Well, that's meant in foreign lands when you're fighting a foreign force, but it's okay domestically."
Against civilians.
Oh, so if they do it against their own people, it's totally
It's
cool.
better.
Just
Well,
don't
well,
do it
act-
against your
well,
enemy.
Well, no, actually, it is legal for the police to use it. Tear gas. Here, it's not considered.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the government determines what's legal.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but according to the law, that they can use it on its own forces, on unarmed protesters, without breaking the Geneva Convention. Here, on the other hand, civilians on the opposite side of the border is into a foreign land,
Yeah, so Mexico
I would
has called
believe
for
that-
an investigation over it.
and it's a human rights violation.
Oh, for sure. And again, legality does not equal morality. Right.
Absolutely.
So, also on the legal aspect, I want to point out that when you're seeking asylum, it doesn't matter how you got in. If you got in illegally, you still have up to a year to go to the government and say, I want to seek asylum. And regardless of how you got there, they will start that process for you. And everybody's saying, well, they're fleeing poverty, that doesn't make you eligible. Well, I mean, if you trust your government so much, then let them do their job. There's a whole department dedicated to vetting these people. So let them And while they're being vetted, while your application for asylum is pending, you're allowed to stay in the U.S. That's the law. So it doesn't matter how you got here, you can still apply. And if it's determined that you're not eligible, then you're not allowed to apply ever again, and you'll get deported. So it's like, why shut down the port of entry where they're supposed to turn themselves in if you want them to do it legally? It makes no sense.
If they're trying to sneak into the country, they're doing a horrible job because they're in a giant caravan stating we're going there to do this.
Exactly.
And then they're showing up at the border and appealing to border guards. They're not fucking. If you're trying to sneak in, people have been doing that for.
Yeah.
Well, I think
years.
this is, it's not that it's the legal way to do things, and they're shutting it down. Why are they shutting the border down? This is a message that's being sent by the president of his policies and what's to come later.
Yeah.
You follow suit. This isn't a random act, and it isn't an impulsive act. It's planned for further actions, as you see, as he ups his rhetoric. And it also inflames, racism within the country. So, he's giving a nod to those racists that, yes, it's okay. So...
Well, the other thing about that, the excuse that they used for building the wall around East Berlin was that they had to protect their citizens from people sneaking in from West Germany at the time that the Soviets were in control of, Eastern Germany. So that's the fight. The wall works both ways. You can't go in or out.
Yeah.
So
and I could see
there
it
we
the
go.
way that our government's, it's already authoritarian, totalitarian, if you ask me, but
Yep.
it's only going to get worse. Fascism's on the rise. I don't want a wall keeping me from being able to get out. People would say, imagine it now, like, oh, I would never want to leave.
Well, even if you
Just
somehow
imagine
are
how it's
delusional,
gonna be.
even if you're somehow delusional enough not to understand that Trump is a fucking fascist, and at the very least he appeals to fascists purposely.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the last president, or at least he probably won't be. So there's going to be another guy who's going to come along, and guess what? That wall's there. So if he decides to fucking become a fascist, and we've already built the wall there, and you decide you want to get out, guess what? You ain't getting out.
That's billions of dollars
Well-
it's going to cost, and it's like that money could go to so much. It's just seems like a waste to me. A lot of government expenditure is a waste to me. But
Like I said, that wall might actually at some point help Mexico, if it contains the overflow of crap that's flowing into the nation from this one. If it stops the flow of fascism, they actually have a wall in place now to keep it contained. So
And then
I hope for the best.
the other argument I'm hearing from people online is like, no, there's proven criminals in the caravan. Well, if it's proven and the government knows that they are criminals, then they're not going to let them in.
Listen, there's proven criminals within our own government, and yet they're still
Yeah.
serving. There's
Yeah.
proven criminals within the police force, and yet they still go out
Yeah.
and are police officers.
Exactly.
So what do they say? Clean up your own backyard before you clean up somebody else's. So let's start with cleaning out the scum that's in our government and in our police forces, and holding them accountable before we start going off their women, children, and infants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
the
just
Border
crazy.
Patrol guy, about a month ago, they admitted to killing 4 women.
Well, he was a serial killer.
Yeah,
Yeah, and these are who we have protecting our
And
borders.
that's one
Crazy.
example.
and there's been many
fucking
more. I've read many
Go on
stories.
nvcoplog.org and do a search of Border Patrol, and you'll find fucking a bunch of stories.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I could talk about this all day, really, but we'll move on to the next story. Here's another hero saving the day. Taxpayers to be held liable as video shows police beat a woman for selling flowers without a permit. Oh, man. So you need permission from the Crown to sell flowers. It's supposed to be the American dream, right? I like the Carlin quote where he says it's the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe in it. But this is somebody who came here
True.
for a better life, tried to make it by being an entrepreneur selling her own flowers.
So
Well,
she
didn't
wasn't white.
pay.
This woman wasn't white.
No.
So here we go now.
Same theme
Another story,
continues,
same
yeah.
theme continues.
Yeah.
The police were against the people.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's
they'd
all
also,
rooted-
like, if she wasn't out selling flowers, they'd be complaining that she was taking public assistance. So.
Right.
And that's the other argument is they say, oh, well, they're just coming here to leech off of us and get welfare. Asylum seekers are not
Which
eligible.
they can't because they're not citizens.
Yeah, they're not
Right,
eligible
they're
to get
not
welfare,
eligible.
sorry.
And unfortunately, the largest group of people that get food stamps or WIC and are the white people in the Appalachians. They're the largest recipients
Yeah, so
of welfare.
And Walmart employees.
Unfortunately, that is true. And Amazon employees.
yeah.
You know, any of these big corporations that don't pay a living wage or even pretend to pay a living wage, where they went to $15 an hour, but you only work 3 or 4 hour shifts.
Yeah.
So, you know, you never get enough money so you can feed your families or pay your rent.
People always talk about welfare, social welfare. What about corporate welfare? I mean, it's way more money goes to corporations, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
This is just a quick little article I suggest you guys check out. There's just so many, from lemonade stands to mowing the lawn without a permit. I mean, they'll arrest you, beat you up for anything.
That's why they're called pigs.
Yeah. The other story, look at this fucking guy. Basically, a rape cop rapes a kid. He was
You do what you know.
A detective assigned to the department's child sex crimes unit, whose job it was to help child victims, has been arrested for allegedly raping one of those victims.
Yep, little kid.
Well, and,
Fucking
you know, the fact that they don't hold the cops accountable is tantamount to what the Catholic Church was doing in the days.
Oh,
and
yeah.
with the stories that have been coming out lately, because there's more access to records and that sort of thing, that comparison isn't just tangential at this point. I mean, there are actually a lot of sexual predators and child molesters within the police department, and they're not dealt with. They're shifted to
covered
another
by their
department.
brothers. They have that thin blue line. That
That's exactly what
thin
the-
blue line will protect
yeah.
them, and the police union. Which
See,
is
the
a
one,
big
the one
part of that.
difference is eventually the Catholic Church came down because people didn't feel like, oh, we have to have the church, you know? People have this idea that, oh, we have to have policing as we have it now. So we have to overlook this because what are we going to do if we don't have the police? you
Well,
know?
eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to change hearts and minds with that.
And that's, you know, the reality
it's
is
not
if
true.
you had community policing, then
Yeah.
the people would be in control of it. And the people would say, well, he's raping our children, so
We'll
let's
take
get rid
care
of
of
him.
them. Yeah.
Right.
Communities need to start taking care of themselves and make policing obsolete. This detective's name was Neil Kimball. He was 45 with the Special Victims Bureau. He was arrested Friday on suspicion of rape by force and preventing or dissuading a witness or victim from testifying.
Yeah, and that's the other commonality between the Catholic Church and other jobs. The police have that opportunity. They have the opportunity to commit crimes. They have the opportunity to take advantage of women and children.
And cover it up.
So they gravitate to that job, and that's what it is. And when you give them a free pass on it, then they gravitate to it even more because now it's a free shot. You know, you can do whatever you want, and you know you can get away with it.
And this is really prevalent. I mean, we don't do a lot of cases about this, but police officers getting caught up in child pornography stings is a constant thing. I read about it at
That's
least
government
once.
at all levels, too.
Yeah. But, you know, since this is ACAB,
And
but the police, at least once a month, when they do major stings, you'll see quite a few cops.
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's one of those things where you know you get that argument from the people that want to pretend the cops don't ever do anything bad. You know, all these bootlickers and cop lovers. That, oh, we shouldn't publicize the bad stuff the cops do because that hurts the good cops. No, cops that are supposedly good not doing anything about it is what hurts the cops.
Exactly. Like this guy, he back in 2009 was reported for grabbing some woman's hand and trying to make her touch his genitals. So they knew about him. They knew he was a problem, and his brothers covered it up, and he kept his job. And later, turns out he rapes a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah, the
That's-
reason that the running joke now about the Catholic Church is that they're a bunch of pedophiles is because they looked the other way when all those pedophiles were doing stuff, not because somebody eventually reported it.
Right,
And
and
actively
stories are
cover
still
it up.
coming out. Stories are still coming out, even today. I read one.
So if you're one
So-
of these supposed good cops, stop sitting on your hands when you know somebody's being beat. Or
Yeah, and please don't put your hand, force other people's hands
Well,
into your genitals,
yeah.
because
Sometimes it's-
contrary to popular belief, grabbing somebody's hand and putting it on your genitals is sexual
Yeah.
assault. I mean, you just can't do that. I just thought I'd put that out there so
Yeah.
everybody understands.
yeah, even if they let you put your hand on their dick 5 years ago.
Right.
So we do have time. We'll play this Parkland animation real quick. Again, if you're just tuning in, let me find the story here.
If you're just tuning in, what the hell is wrong with you? We've been on the air for
we've
quite a
been-
while now.
we've been
We
waiting for
expect you to be on
Come
time.
on, time.
Come on, guys.
This is the
We
story.
need you.
We should start over for those people that are just
Yeah.
tuning in.
All right, welcome to ACAB Radio. So yeah, the police captain that responded to the Parkland shooting did such a terrible job. This was in the article by the Bradenton Herald. They had this really cool animation that broke down the whole how events went down. So check this out. That's the school there, and it starts with that guy who I guess is a hall monitor or whatever, is in a golf cart.
I heard they're going to outlaw Ubers, by the way, because, that's how he got there.
Yeah, it's like blaming guns, blame Uber, because that's how he got there. So you don't see him cruise the suspect. You don't see him yet, but Medina saw him and follows him until he hears gunshots. Then he fucking dips.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this on just the audio podcast, head over to Facebook, check out this is episode 28, and you'll be able to see all the video content. There he is right there at the stairs, pulls out his gun as the student's walking in. This kid's like, what the fuck? Like that. It's like, oh shit, I gotta go. I'm fucking out of here. And there he goes. And then he pulls it up and he just starts shooting. Right now, that's the first shot.
And he's still cruising around in his golf cart.
Yeah. Well, you see he turned around. He's like, I'm fucking out of here.
There he goes.
Yeah.
Exit stage left.
And, I read his story a long time ago, or, months ago, that he recognized the kid when he got there. And this was a kid who they already was like, this kid's fucked up. They knew he had some shit. So he recognized the kid and saw him walking with a gun in his hand and fucking left. Stood and hid out in the fucking parking lot.
What's your emergency?
Hello, we're at Stoneman Douglas High School, and I think there's a shooter.
Hello? You still there? Talk to me, please.
What is your emergency?
Yes, I just got a call from Douglas High School. A female on the line advised me they believe there's a shooter at the school.
Okay, at Douglas High School in what
In
city?
Parkland, 5901
Oh,
Pine
okay.
Island.
5901 Pine Island.
Yes.
Okay, let me see if they're working anything there. And a second-hand information from a student?
A female called in. It sounded like possible shots in the background. I think I heard 5 or 6 in 2 different bursts.
17 Juliet 3, 17 Bravo 3, 17 Bravo 4.
Juliet 3, be advised, we have possible, could be firecrackers. I think we got shots fired. Possible shots fired. 1200 building.
Attention all units in District 15, possible shots fired at 5901 Pine Island Road at Stoneman Douglas High School. Possible shots fired at Stoneman Douglas High School.
There he is, off to the side, behind the building.
1584 out. Juliet 3, make sure we some units over here. I need to shut down Stone and Douglas, the intersection.
Now that's an officer, I believe, a school officer, Peterson.
Yeah.
Stop for.
Send somebody because I'm not going to do shit.
Thank you for what's the address?
Oh, he's just walking around looking at them.
23, we're talking about the 1200 building. It's going to be the building off of Holmberg Road.
Any descriptions? I'm coming up from West Lake Middle.
We don't have any description yet. We just hear shots, but there appears to be shots fired. I'm over on the south side, over by the 700 building.
Tango 2, I'm shutting down eastbound Holmberg at the divide between Blades and
Yeah,
High
somebody
School.
should have said, why the fuck you in the 700 building when he's in the 1200
I'll
building?
get the west side of Stillman on Holmberg.
Stop for west side of Holmberg.
704 responding. Hey, Julie, what?
And then backs up.
Tango 2, I hear shots fired by the football field. Shots fired by the football field.
Shots fired by the football field. Heard.
17 Juliet 3, we're looking at the 1200 building. It's going to be the 300 building. It's going to be right off of Holmberg Road by the senior lot. Keep the school locked down, gentlemen.
Attention all units now working to signal 33. Go to Bravo channel for regular
Tango
traffic.
2, some students say they thought it was firecrackers and we're not sure. By the football field.
All right, 26. So we also heard it over by inside the 1200 building. We're locking down the school right now. Make sure there's no pedestrian traffic anywhere on Holmberg Road.
15 Echo 2 on 51.
So there's a
Unit
lot of
51.
cops there already 2 minutes in. But as you can see, they don't engage.
I just had one of the fire admin go by and make reference to an active shooter at Douglas. Anything to that?
10-4 Kilo 23, there is an
I
active
mean,
shooter
to be
working
fair, there was
at
only
Douglas.
6 of them.
Multiple gunshots are being fired. We can hear them in the background. Our 911 lines are blowing up. We have multiple units on the phone. Some are giving EMD. It is confirmed.
The other thing, they're busy setting up a perimeter. They didn't even do that good because he fucking left. Went to the mall and bought a fucking Slurpee.
Bravo 3, we need somebody to shut down Holmberg at Pine Island.
Units to shut down Holmberg. Advise.
Holmberg shut down. We're in front of building 13 of the 900 building. We have shots fired. I'm trying to get the fence open.
Building 13 and 900 building.
Howard, do not approach the 12 or 1300 buildings. Stay at least 500 feet away at this point.
Yeah, so there you go.
Stay away from 12 and 1300 building.
Where all the children are.
Yeah, where all the children are being murdered.
Tango 2, I got a victim with a gunshot to the right leg. Said a gunshot to the right leg. Show me the west end of the high school by the football field.
GSW right leg, west end by the football field.
And there's Jordan on scene. That's who just
39
resigned.
white male, ROT Burgundy shirt.
Burgundy shirt.
Juliet 39, last seen in the 3-story building, north parking lot.
10-4 last seen, 3-story building in the north parking lot. Juliet 39, is he still shooting?
Well, they don't know because they're 500 feet away.
Yeah, they go into the first building.
It's a male in a hoodie he could not describe with at least an AR-15, if not an AK-47.
54.
There's Officer Jordan
Home with the Douglas's SRO, getting info.
in like the farthest building from where the shooting happened.
That's because you're supposed to go home alive at the end of every
that is
shift,
a reality.
no
I mean,
matter what.
The reason they train them that is so they won't hesitate to murder citizens. But the reality is that's what's drummed into their head from the day they get into the academy is you have to protect yourself. So if there's any chance they're going to actually get, and that's why the cops in Vegas during the mass shooting out here at the Route 91 sat in the hallway for over an hour.
Right. They're going home no matter who has to die to make sure that happens.
Doesn't matter if he's raining bullets down on a crowd. We got to make sure we're safe before we go.
That's
in.
right.
And that other guy stood in hid in the fucking stairwell downstairs.
Victims in the 3-story building. Possible suspect with an ROTC uniform. We can hook up with them and verify.
And, like I said, they all try to put this on Scott Peterson, and, he deserves to be called a coward because he was. But you heard it right there. They ordered him to stay away from the buildings.
What's going on? Do we have the perimeter set up right now and everybody clearing out of the school?
That's negative.
And they weren't going to go in then. The city police showed up and were like, what the fuck are you guys doing? That's why they eventually went in.
Here we are at the 10:19 mark.
So other law...
1701.
1701.
Golf 11, we have multiple golf units in route.
Golf units are en route. 1701, go ahead.
1701. I want to make sure that we have a perimeter set up and the school's being, all the kids are getting out, so we need to shut down around this school. Does the Delta unit have a place where we're setting up for all the units coming into the area?
10-4. They're advising that the school is on lock.
Have a command post set up. We have a perimeter around it. We have two teams going in, checking right now.
At 11:57, they have two teams going in checking.
Which way are they going into the school?
At 12 minutes.
Entering from the north side through the parking lot where the students park.
Yeah, he's already long gone.
Yeah, he's already at the mall chilling with the...
If you were a victim or you were in there, I can guarantee you those 12 minutes they waited before entering the buildings probably seemed like 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Other law enforcement commanders on the scene described Jordan as speaking as if she were in a dreamlike state and not being focused on finding the shooter, according to interviews with state investigators.
And the other thing, that's 12 minutes for them to go in, which they're not even completely in now. So then they had to search all around the building to see if he was there. So people literally bled to death while they were sitting out there on the street doing nothing.
So there's other officers that were speaking out against Jan Jordan, saying she was overwhelmed. I could see it. I tried to help her.
But nobody went in. Nobody said she's, not I don't know, she broke during the ordeal and didn't step in and make sure that these lives were saved. They just rolled along with it, and then after they come out and they're talking shit, but they didn't, relieve her of command or say, you know what, we got to go in and save.
Well, and the other thing is, like, if you're in the military and your commander doesn't know what the fuck's going on, or they're fucking have some kind of mental breakdown, there's a process to say, like, let's fucking take command and put the next person in charge of this and get this person that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing and putting us in danger out of here. So why wouldn't there, I'm sure there is with the police.
That's what I was saying.
And nobody stepped forward and said, hey, people are being murdered in there. Let's not stay 500 feet away from the building that is happening in.
Yeah. She tried to blame the radios, but, I mean,
yeah,
it sounded like it was working fine to me.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Here
unless
in
they
Vegas,
hired the same company that Las Vegas
Lombardo
did.
Yeah. Motorola.
And meanwhile, they were all standing on the street together, so what the fuck does the radio have to do with anything at that point?
Yeah. So that's it, folks. They said here, if we find out that one or more deputies chose a path of inaction, they will be disciplined, and they will be disciplined swiftly.
They'll take away 3 hours of vacation time.
Right.
And,
well, I can look at that illustration and tell you about 12 of them. So.
And they were, they'll be allowed to resign if anything, I'm sure, and still
No,
collect their
I
paid
guarantee
time
you,
off, vacation
they'll
time.
just dock them
pension.
vacation time. They'll
Well,
dock
who
'em,
knows? I'd
and
be
then they'll make
surprised.
it up in overtime the next week.
Yeah.
So there won't be any
Well,
punishment.
and that's what some people don't understand. When they let them resign, most of the time the cops don't even use their vacation time because they get paid so much overtime and all that, and they get time off regardless of that.
Yeah, so it just accumulates.
So when they resign, they usually have a big backlog of months worth of vacation time that they get paid in a big lump sum, and then they run off and go work for some other department. She'll probably go be a chief at some small town police department and hire the next murderer from Las Vegas.
I'm sure their police union will start a GoFundMe for her or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember out here after the 1 October shooting, our sheriff still stood by the officers saying, even the ones in the hallway that no disciplinary action would be taken against them, and they were waiting in the stairwell right outside of the room. They were waiting on the floor below him.
Yeah, all those heroes that stepped up.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask me, the most heroes were the people, just regular everyday people that were using their vehicles to take
even the ones
wounded to the hospital and whatnot, and the nurses and the doctors and
like the fire department and those people that came in there and didn't have body armor and actually went in and pulled people out.
And the victims that were on the floor when this was happening, running and helping.
Yeah. And the other thing is, even the ones that actually responded are on video. There's a video of them stating, hey, if anybody gets injured, make sure you take care of us before you take care of any of the civilians.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in those body cams that have come out.
Damning evidence against the pigs.
There's even though they try to use like selective editing to produce their own propaganda for what heroes they were, but if you watch the bulk of the body cams, there's a lot of them out there, but they're all on YouTube. And I mean, there's even officers saying, if I die, I don't want Joe Lombardo coming to my funeral, and
Which nobody does.
I mean, it's crazy. Just even seeing Jesus Campos on the footage was weird, because supposedly he got shot in the leg, but he's like, yeah, the guy shot at me, and I don't know if it was a pellet gun or a BB gun, and that's what he told the officers. But the officer's story was that the guy fired all these rounds through the door.
Yeah. Shot 200 rounds through the door.
Yeah.
Hit him once.
Yeah, and
a little
Campos is
flesh wound in
saying,
the leg.
"Oh, I got," he's walking fine. He's like, "Oh, I got a."
And meanwhile, then they had to
pellet gun.
blow the door up. You shoot 200 rounds of an automatic rifle through a fucking door.
Yeah.
How's there even going to be anything left of that door, let alone something you have to blow up?
Right.
And there weren't 200 holes in the door. It's just crazy how much the story changed. But that's a topic we could talk about forever.
And we will.
Yeah, and deserves to be.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. I don't know if we have any events coming up, but
Well, the park should be reopening next week. So
I think the 3rd. Somebody said December 3rd.
all right.
Their
so we'll
sign
be back out there.
said that it was until November 30th, so
Yeah, if maybe just December 3rd, our first day back, or
maybe.
I don't
Maybe
know
they'll keep
why.
it closed.
December
I know
3rd.
they're going to try to build a wall around it, you know.
Yeah.
Because with their logic, you know, they complain that when the park is closed at night, then homeless people go through their neighborhoods. But so the solution is to close the park all the time so that homeless people don't have anywhere to go except their neighborhoods.
Yeah, and at Boot Up Bombs, you know, I've been hearing about increased police harassment of the people, especially now that it's getting cold here, and the people without blankets and clothing, warm clothing. The police are stepping up their efforts to harass, you know, the people out on the street and make life even more miserable for them.
And
Well,
not
it's about
just-
time for another one of their pre-Christmas raids where they go through and steal all the warm weather clothing and
No, they
blankets
wait
and stuff.
They wait for the big drive when the all these charity organizations, the major ones, come out and distribute blankets, tents, and sleeping bags. They wait until that happens, and they come in the next week. So they want to make sure that when they do take stuff, there's enough stuff to make it worth their while. And it really, really hurts, you know? They want to make sure they get that extra kicker in. So
Yeah,
it's just
and they probably go
crazy.
give it back to the Starvation Army.
it's the same one. They recycle year. All right, we're giving it out, but then you guys got to go back out there and collect it so we could give it out the next giveaway.
Yeah, I wish I had that
Perhaps so.
article here, but there were 3 people out here. It was on Fourmaster, right outside of the courtyard, where all that entire street, all the curbs are painted red, and they say you can't stop there. You can't even stand there. There's a sign saying no standing.
Right, no standing, no stopping.
Yeah.
Or parking.
Which
yeah.
makes no sense. It's not a fire hazard. You know, I mean, you block
Well,
off one curb next to the
Right.
fire hydrant, but they have the whole street blocked off. And they ticketed people that were distributing, sharing items.
Well,
with
they parked
folks there.
in they parked in the fire lane. You can't park at the fire. You know, if you want to go out and help the people, you got to make sure that you watch out for yourself also. You don't go in and park in fire lanes or by hydrants. That's only
Well, that's
inviting the
thing,
police
there's-
to come.
There's
and-
nowhere on that street to park, though. That's the thing.
Well,
They
the
won't-
reality,
the courtyard has
I
a
mean, the
park yard.
reality is they blocked off the street so they could do that, and
Right.
they gave them a ticket for feeding homeless people, regardless of the rationale behind it.
Well, no, that right,
but you have to not make it easy for them, so you have to be aware of what you're doing and make sure you're not parking somewhere that you shouldn't park.
Right,
To give
and-
them that easy opportunity to harass you. For
Exactly,
feeding homeless people.
and even using that private property, the business owners and property owners give the police the right. They sign over their right to their property to the police for have them to come in and trespass without getting the owner's permission. So the police can actually, without the owner being present, come in and give you tickets for trespassing if you're on private property, even if it's an abandoned lot. The business owners sign over their rights. And you have to be very conscious of that also. You have to kind of skirt the system. You got to work around it as best as possible. Knowing your rights and knowing the laws goes a long way in keeping you safe and from getting tickets. Unfortunately, the police also lie. And that's something else you have to contend with. The best advice that we can give you, and as we say at Nevada Cop Block, man, film the police, film the police, film the police. Have people ready with their cameras. Tell people before you even start. You know, as soon as you see a police car approaching, have your cameras ready to roll. And what's really important is if one person is having interaction with the police and they're recording, the other people should be recording from further away of that interaction where they have both people on the camera, the person filming and the police officer. The more angles you have for when the police step out of line and do something illegal, the safer you're going to be. So there's my Christmas tip for the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Film the police
Definitely
and fuck the
film.
police.
So what happened out on Four Masters? It was 3 people. That's what they cited them for, because they can't cite you for sharing with homeless folks. What they can do is get you for a parking infraction, which is why they painted that whole street red. It
Yes.
had nothing to do with fire enforcement. It's so that people don't go out and help people.
And
And
It
the
gives them a
courtyard,
reason, yeah.
the courtyard has a parking lot of their own, which they don't allow people to park in legally to avoid tickets.
Interesting.
So
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I just want to point that out because I've gone in and talked to the people that run the courtyard, and the only way that they let me park there one time was when I shared it in the courtyard. And the problem with sharing it in the courtyard is there are tons and tons of people who are banned from going in the courtyard for whatever reason. So then there's people on the streets out there that can't come in and get the services that we're bringing.
So all the people in the courtyard who are already receiving services and meals are the only ones eligible to get extra and other resources.
Yeah, so that's why we chose to share on Forum Master, because we want to be able to, because people in the courtyard can come out, but people on the streets can't necessarily go in. So we make sure we hit everybody by sharing right there on the sidewalk. And I've never gotten ticketed before, but I know that they have, the way that the cops find out is it's all under surveillance, and the people there at the courtyard call the police.
The other thing is,
Yeah.
you know, they sat and waited to give somebody a ticket for it. And then they made sure that the newspaper reported that so that it'd be a warning to other people.
Yeah, it's a deterrent to get people from helping people. They want you to go through their services, you know, donate to a nonprofit and not take matters into your own hands and help people.
Right.
So
Which, let me just say, Food Not Bombs, we're nonprofit. No one takes any sort of salary in our group. We're all volunteer. It's an all-volunteer organization. So when you donate to us or give directly, there's no middleman. There's no CEO buying another Bentley or Rolls Royce or taking another trip to Hawaii. All the money goes and is funneled right to the people that need it. Unlike these other organizations that have the structure set in place where they're paying people.
Yeah,
where
they're
people
getting
get
taxpayer
salaries
dollars
and they
to
also
fund
get
their staff.
right.
As long as we're bringing that up, we should mention that today is Giving Tuesday. And
It is.
if you give a donation to Food Not Bombs through Facebook, they have a thing where they match your donation. So there is a donation link on mine and Joey's profiles.
And there's a few others out there that I know the good work that we're doing. Tasha, actually, I think has one also. People do care about what we do and see the value.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just Food Not Bombs. There's a lot of organizations that help in their own way that are subject to this same enforcement, this crackdown that they're doing now. So there will be a civil disobedience action. If it's not tomorrow, it'll be next week. But we'll be out there in force, doing what we do to let them know we won't be intimidated. We're going to continue to help the most vulnerable in our communities and do that to the best of our abilities without government's help. And
Neighbor helping neighbor.
yeah, and if a cop wants to come out there and write a citation, I promise you, if I'm out there, you're gonna regret it, buddy.
There will be
'Cause
filming.
I will be filming it. I'm gonna
We'll all
talk
be
shit,
filming it.
and I'm gonna make you fucking famous, bro. So, I'll go out there tomorrow. I'll be out there tomorrow, and if police want to come and meet me out there, that would be great. Come on out.
We and please, if you can, even a couple dollars donated to Food Not Bombs goes a long way. Like I said, every dollar donated is a dollar that goes right back to the streets.
Yeah, that's the
It
thing.
goes
When you
right
donate
there.
directly, you're not paying for a bureaucracy, right? You're
Yeah.
not paying person salary. Like we do so much more with so much less.
Well, you're not paying for a six-figure salary to a CEO. You're not paying for them to run campaigns for awareness and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
And
to take trips to other parts of the country to make sure they, because it's part of that awareness thing that they.
Yeah.
Well, and here's something that's really important. Even if homelessness isn't one of your guiding things that you want to alleviate, because this is ACAB radio, we talk about police brutality. Having us out there irritates the police more than you could ever know. It goes right up their ass. So by supporting Food Not Bombs, indirectly, you're also creating a lot of stress and aggravation on the part of the pigs. So that's a good feeling in and of itself.
And the other thing is they are bullies and they will harass homeless people. So when we're out there, we try to monitor that and try to protect homeless people from that.
All right. I guess that's the end of our show for today. Thank you all. Tune in next week.
We should bring the FedEx man in. And
Yeah.
interview him.
Recorded live.
You wanna come
before
on live?
studio
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah. This is why we cut short here. Hold on.